Al-Hassan Suhini is a member of parliament for Tamale North. Good morning to you, Al-Hassan.
Good morning, my brother.
And I just saw him at that short memorial we had at the forecourt of the multimedia group building. And then we also have Reverend John Intim Fojo, member of parliament for Asin South. Of course, you saw him live on TV, and paying some tribute or homage to the late Kojo Kaba. Well, thanks for joining me too, Rev.
Thank you.
All right, so let's do some discussions quickly. I have on the front page of the Daily Graphic, it says SHS risk closure, scholarship, subsidies, food supplies and arrears apparently. And you have a picture there of one Mrs. Celia Kwachi Kofi, who is a national president of CHANS, and CHANS is the conference of heads of assisted secondary schools. I don't know, it used to be assisted secondary school. I don't know whether we'll change it to assisted senior high schools or something. There's still CHAS though. And she was speaking at the 38th speech and prize giving day of the Winneba Senior High School in Winneba. And it was themed the major challenges confronting these senior high schools. It says the major challenges confronting senior high schools as they are in arrears and of subsidies and the release of payment of scholarship to second and third year students. And it says government's unwillingness or reneging on its part to supply food to the schools. And he said although the heads of school had submitted the enrollment figures and also engaged the government on several occasions, nothing was forthcoming. And she said it is a fact that heads of schools are under serious pressure but are afraid to voice it for fear of intimidation and sanctions. Well, I have to start with you, Reverend Intim Fojo. What are your initial remarks on this? Particularly very disturbing. It's not, for me personally, it's not as if it's something new. I think even the multimedia group in some sections and sections of the media had brought out some challenges, teething challenges that some of these schools are facing. We wouldn't say majority of the schools.
Good morning, Roland. And foremost, my condolences to you, to multimedia group, to Ghana as a nation. We have indeed lost an illustrious son. We have indeed lost a legend. For the past 10 years, one cannot in any way dispute the indelible contribution that Kojo Asaribafo Champo has given to even by extension our body politic and to the media, to the sector of political analysis and journalism at large. We never expected to hear this sad news. Today we are all saddened, and on behalf of the President, His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the leadership of the MPP, the majority caucus of the MPP, we extend our heartfelt condolences to the family, to multimedia, to Asempa, to the wife and the child that are survived, to the parents. And it is so sad to note that, to have learned that he is the only child of the parents. What a loss that must have been to the parents. But in all these things, I still reiterate 1 Thessalonians 5:18, that in all things, God admonishes us to give thanks to him. In his timing, he gave us this beautiful gift. And his timing, Kojo Asaribafo Champon Kaba has joined his maker. So I still maintain that we are grieved, we are mourning, but heaven is rejoicing because such a great man has gone back to his maker. We are very sad. Notwithstanding, I would want to briefly touch on very salient concerns that have been raised. But to start with, there are a few factors and facts.
And you're raising the issues on Kaba's death, or
no. I'm moving away. Moving away from. I would have wished that even the whole day would have been dedicated, but of course, there are other issues that we may have to. I mean, these are issues very passionate to the heart of Kaba himself whilst he was alive, and it is in order that we have some time also to discuss them. In respect of the free SHS excuse me, challenges that have been enumerated in the central region, with the reportage, I was not at the function and I do not know the content of the speech. But if what has been reported was actually what was said in the speech, of the woman, then it is unfortunate.
She's just
Roland,
not a woman. She is the
chance president. Yes, the chance president. It is unfortunate in the sense that the free SHS supply, food supply, has been mandated to National Food Buffer Stock, where existing suppliers and additional suppliers were registered and mandated and zoned out across the country, various districts and various schools. Each supplier was assigned to these schools, including Central Region. I'm from the Central Region, so I'm very versed and I'm very keen and interested in the progress of free SHS, if for no region at all, in Central Region. There are 4 schools in my constituencies, 4 secondary schools that are benefiting from this program. And I'm regularly in touch with the headmasters, and I'm interested even in other schools that are not in my constituency. I follow the challenges they are facing, progress that is made, specifically with the challenge of food supply. Up to midterm, the checks that I had done revealed that adequate supplies from suppliers had been made, albeit there were some exceptional challenges in some suppliers that are still being resolved by the National Buffer Stock CEO. Just a handful of challenges, but it does not, those challenges does not in any way even get to the proportions that will constitute grave ramifications for the success of the running of free SHS. Now, the chance president for Central Region also hinted that there were challenges to the running of free SHS and attributing it to the arrears of subsidies that are in arrears for about 3 terms. And these are arrears that were piled and left behind by the previous administration, which of course is the responsibility of the new government to ensure that that is sorted. So that must be put in context. Let not the impression be created that there were some payments that ought to have gone in respect of free SHS, which has been reneged on, for which some challenges are happening. Again, one fact that must also be established is that 20% of the budgeted amount to finance free SHS was disbursed to the schools. But it's also important to bring in perspective the point that the entire budgetary allocation has been released, and that 20% was sent to the schools. That 20% that was sent to the schools was specifically to cater for those procurements or activities that were done expressly by the schools. For instance, provision of uniforms, administrative charges, and other charges that are directly incurred by the schools. And critically analyzing that component of the cost, the 20% that has already been disbursed to them, awaiting the validated reconciliatory report from the schools for the balance to be paid, constitutes not less than 75% of what ought to be sent to the schools. Now, let us all appreciate that when it comes to the financing of free SHS, the biggest proportion of the cost component of free SHS is feeding. Feeding is the most expensive cost component in the free SHS program. That has been outsourced to buffer stock to supply, meaning that the schools hitherto would have received payments and then they would have used the boarding facility portion, the meals portion, to procure food to prepare for the students. But in this current arrangement, that is no longer the responsibility of the schools. It is the responsibility of government to do so. Buffer stock has been mandated, and buffer stock has registered suppliers who are supplying corn, rice, tin tomatoes, mackerel, soya bean, groundnuts, even chicken, gari, and various food items, except for perishables. Except for perishables that has still been given to the schools so that component is directly paid to the school. And that supply has been going on, like I indicated. And if I'm even to confidently, on authority, speak in specific reference to the Central Region supply is going on smoothly. One cannot say it's not going without challenges.
So you're saying that
the challenges
you're saying that
not amount
particularly
to,
for you,
yes,
Central Region At least it shouldn't even be cited.
It's running, but I must acknowledge that it is not without challenges. But the challenges that are being faced as a result of some logistic challenges by some few suppliers, that's not in any way even rise up to this level. But Roland, one thing that we all must be circumspect about is that when it comes to policies that have become a national policy, a policy that has come with huge relief for the masses. If you are in the situation that I grew up in and the difficulties and challenges I faced, like many thousands and millions of families faced in financing their high school education, you would appreciate the benefit, the immense benefits that this program has brought on households. We must all come collectively as stakeholders and as well-meaning citizens to do all we can to support the running and ensure that it's successful and avoid any tendencies of drawing partisan interest into this. Why am I saying so? There are people who are on record to have resolved, they are heads of various secondary schools who have resolved that because of their political affiliation,
which heads?
They will do all they can. When it gets to that point, I will produce.
But you're citing so-called heads who perhaps...
these are issues that are very important.
Not before the public eye.
I am saying this to you.
Sabotage
this is an issue.
Are you saying the senior high school heads are the ones that are not supplying?
I have personally received a number of complaints from suppliers. They will carry loads to schools and the schools will turn them back.
Which schools?
I will supply to you at the appropriate time. No, these are issues that has come to my attention. I've taken a lot of steps in resolving this. And I've been doing it for the past 2 weeks. In Central Region.
Which schools?
In Central, and for the past weeks.
Which schools in the Central Region?
For some reason, don't worry. I know the reason why. For some reason, I am not disclosing.
But you're disclosing that there are schools that you have gone forward to resolve difficulties with suppliers, getting access to do supplies to those schools. And that is as serious as it could be.
Yes, let me tell you what is happening. By the arrangement, schools ought to give suppliers their food requirements, and then weekly requirements, monthly requirements, and then termly requirements. You can use that to extrapolate what their food requirements are for the week. They ought to issue a food supply order against which the suppliers will do. Most of them did not do that. Notwithstanding, most suppliers still went ahead to supply some food, and then
are you saying that they didn't do that because it was deliberate?
You get there, and then they tell you, we haven't placed any order. We don't need this. We don't need that. You turn back, and a call is placed that so and so supplier has reneged on supplying, and that must be corrected. Much as I would not be pleased with any supplier that reneges on its commitment to supply and supply promptly and adequate, quantities and the right quality that is required. I would also not be pleased with schools that may appear to be frustrating the process.
I have to say, you have made statements here which seem to suggest that one, the school heads, some of the school heads have, on the blind side of the public eye, decided to sabotage a government policy, which inures to the benefit of, if not thousands, I would say millions of people or families around Ghana. And two, you're saying that many of these school heads have also decided not to accept supplies from these suppliers, right? And three, you have even intervened in improving or resolving some of these difficulties.
Yes.
But you have refused to substantiate any of these points that you have made.
I have substantiated.
You have not.
My decision.
I think that would be unfair to
my decision not to mention the schools. My decision not to mention the schools on air. That's not constitute failure to substantiate. I have. This is something I've personally been involved in trying to resolve. So now the arrears that is being attributed to MPP. This is arrears that were to have been paid, in the past, albeit it's in arrears. That will be done. And then there were some other accusations that the coming into being of free SHS has even contributed, alleging to have been contributed to the failure on the part of parents of SS2 and SS3 in paying. I mean, this can be avoided. But in conclusion, we all must acknowledge that there is no single policy implemented in any part of the world that is without some challenges. But when the challenges come up, it is up to us all to surmount it and then improve it. And in every policy, at the start of, as you run, you begin to even appreciate some parameters that ought to be improved. And then as you roll it out, you even begin to see certain areas that more attention and certain revisions will have to be channeled at, and then by so doing, we would improve. But that does not in any way. Free SHS is running, it is running successfully. The other challenges that had to do with the capacity of the schools and the infrastructure, some of these challenges had always been there, albeit the coming into being of free SHS in a way has added to it. But we have adequate provisions in the 2018 budget which will decisively address
it's not only the only comment we'll make on the subject.
These infrastructural challenges to ensure going forward we contain some of these challenges.
All right, thank you very much, Roland, and let me say good morning to you, our viewers, and my condolences to the multimedia group and also to a very good friend turned sister, Valentino Furiafrie, and the daughter that she shares with our brother. Still very difficult to refer to him as late Kaba, and the entire family. Our heartfelt condolences are with them. I think this is another example of how this whole thing called life can be very deceptive. We live and we live like we never lived. It's a stage. You come upon it, you do your part. It is something that we will all experience. Rich, poor, old, young. It doesn't discriminate. The only thing is none of us is aware of when it will come to us, how it will come to us, and where it will come to us. So to our loved ones, Kaba included, we pray that the good Lord will grant them some peaceful rest until we join them, and may He make our stay that is not permanent here useful and fruitful, so that we can have His mercy when we also meet Him, because in the end it is you, your Lord, and your deeds. May our deeds find favor in the sight of our Lord when we are called. Once again, my deepest condolences. And life must go on. And so we are here, and the lives of our young ones, future leaders, are at risk as a result of the shambolic implementation of the campaign promise of free SHS, which has to be met regardless of the damage that it does to our educational sector. It is not as if the writing was not on the wall. We many times pointed to these dangers even before the 2016 general elections. And I'm surprised that my brother and colleague is still playing the denial game, even though the reality is staring us in the face. I mean, when we in the NDC spoke about the need to approach this policy on a gradual basis. And when we said that the manner and way in which the NPP promised it was impossible, we did not mean that it could not be declared and a big launch at the cost, at a cost to the taxpayer could not be conducted. We did not mean that billboards could not be erected. For us, declarations should not amount to success. The fact that we have declared that SHS is free is not enough to say you have succeeded, because the end is what should justify the means. Beyond the declaration, what are you seeking to address and achieve with that policy? And are those things being really realized? So the impossibility did not lie in our inability to find money to organize a lavish launch or to erect billboards. The impossibility lay with the practical challenges that we anticipated, which our friends on the other side failed to anticipate, which today we are all faced with. The practical, unsurmountable challenges. He talks about how food supplies from buffer stock already have been getting to schools. This is the president of CHAS. She is the leader of all head teachers in government-assisted secondary schools in this country. So she sits at a place where she will know better than any of us on this set as far as the running of this program is concerned, because she would have interacted and received feedback from her members. And so she says, as the graphic reports, that since the buffer stock company took charge of the supply of food items on the directive of the government, no supply had been made to the schools, a situation which was having a debilitating effect on the academic work of the schools. She said the heads had fallen on fees paid by continuing students to feed first-year students, saying those fees were also not forthcoming. And the reason she gives for the fees of second and third years not forthcoming is interesting.
Second and third. Not
second and third, sorry. It's interesting. You remember that even after the president organized a lavish launch and declared SHS free, I was on this set and I argued that though problematic as it is, this is not even the way the NPP promised it. And so it could not amount to a fulfillment of the promise that they made to Ghanaians before they were elected. Because their promise was to make SHS free universally. And so at the time they were campaigning, if you had your ward in first year or in second year, your vote could have been influenced by your expectation that if you voted for the MPP, your child will enjoy free SHS. And because you did not know where you were going to find fees to pay that child in first or second year, you may have been hoodwinked to vote for the MPP in anticipation that you will not have to pay.
And you're
fees.
saying this because?
And I'm saying this because the policy, that was the promise, universal, but the policy as it was implemented was a gradual one, a progressive one. And so I argued then that if the MPP had promised that they were also going to offer a progressively free SHS, but in a different manner, perhaps the people of Ghana would have had a better assessment, a better way to assess the two promises. One was progressive, the other was said to be universal even though the implementation is progressive. Now, the interesting part is that the second years and third years, she says, are refusing to pay fees because they say they are also Ghanaians.
Well, that shouldn't happen. The government has made it clear that based on its implementation of the policy, it only covers the first years.
Government has deceived their parents because government, before it became government, promised that they were all going to be covered. And so it is only a reaction to that deception that you are seeing today being played out. That, look, my child is also a Ghanaian. And your promise was to make it universal for all children in SHS. But it has now been limited to first year. So that is why they are having this development. But that's just an aside, Roland. Now, let's look at what really our problems are as a country when it comes to the education sector. We've always battled with infrastructure. We've always complained about quality from the basic to the senior high school level. Yes, we are aware that ability to pay fees is also one of the challenges that parents have. But we have also considered the need, the inability of government to also provide all these requirements, such as infrastructure and quality, and still take the fees, from parents, that burden from parents. So for us in the NDC, the rational way to resolve the challenges that we face in the educational sector is not to pretend to be jack of all trades, where you want to be the only one when the purse is small, providing the infrastructure, feeding the children, when in fact some of your citizens have the capacity to even help you do it.
But now we have these challenges, and Charles is pointing these out.
That's what I'm saying. It is not as if these challenges were not on the wall. And you see, Roland, the danger is even that we are just talking about first years. We're going to have second years, we're going to have third years.
Well, we have a new budget. Government says it will resolve it.
As if we didn't have a budget last year. And as if that promise wasn't made to resolve what we are discussing. So let us not kid ourselves. Today, we are having a fund being set up for voluntary donation. But do you recall again that before the elections, when the costs of this policy came up, our friends, as confident as they have always been, told us they had done the numbers, they know the cost, the figures are there, the budget is there, they know where to get the money to fund it, and everything is done. Kocha, we should just let them come to power. Today they are in power, and they are saying that we should come and voluntarily support. Why do you leave out parents who are able and willing, in some cases, to pay, and then turn around, and especially, the headmistress spoke about victimization. That many of them, yes, the president of Charles. She says many of them are suffering in silence because they are afraid of victimization.
And why would she say that?
Because there is already an example of victimization. You remember Osu?
The headmaster.
The headmaster who was sacked.
Yeah, there was a TV crew there, and then there was a donation that was made by McDonald's shipping. And why were subsequently? And why was she sacked? Why was he sacked? And others who have also been victimized. Why? Because they saw these challenges and they appealed to well-meaning Ghanaians to support. So you punish people for such an act, and then you shamelessly come to the floor of Parliament with a budget that encourages the same practice. That is what?
The headmaster, yes, voluntary. Okay. The headmasters who have been sanctioned said, voluntarily help our school. We are in crisis. and you say, hey, they are going to sabotage.
So how do we resolve
and
these
as
problems?
a result, you dismiss them. You see, now we are faced with a challenge that I think is going to grow.
Oh.
Yes. We have to be honest, and it's not as if we didn't caution. So again, we are cautioning. Let nobody just reduce it to partisan politics.
You're just being pessimistic.
I am being a realist. I am being a realist. The fact of the matter is that our senior high school education is already suffering. In fact, it was already undergoing a number of challenges before this introduction. Now, we did not seek to address those challenges, but sought to compound those challenges by a mere implementation of a campaign promise, regardless of the consequences.
Right.
So my fear is that it's going to get worse.
Maybe
at some point, Roland, we may have to get, a stakeholders discussion, a dispassionate stakeholders discussion on this matter, and look at the way forward. That is what I think should be the case.
Okay. My time is up, but I think I can lay for one more round. 2 minutes each.
Yeah,
2 minutes each.
Yeah, it is very important that we are very circumspect, even in the way that we recount challenges facing the free SHS.
Why?
I must put on record that the statement attributed to the CHAS president, and I still maintain, if that was contained in the speech that was read by the CHAS president, that since the inception of free SHS, buffer stock has failed to deliver food to schools, and that no food buffer stock has reneged on supplying food to the schools, it is palpable falsehood.
You say it's a lie.
It is it's falsehood, and anyone.
You are being diplomatic. You say it's a lie.
Yes, it's palpable falsehood, and anyone, I will give you evidence, and anyone that may want to see this as an opportunity to milk on this palpable falsehood may have the integrity on the line in the next subsequent hours when the CHAS president is made, giving the necessary evidence, reports filed by various SHS under her, who have indicated the various quantities they have received so far, food by food, item by item, and even evidence of suppliers who have already supplied food to schools and even invoiced buffer stock. Then she will come to apologize that I churned out falsehood, and that anyone who may have milked on this falsehood would have the integrity on the line. I showed you just now just even now live texts that are even dropping in from suppliers, and I showed one to you. And now there's a reason why I do not want to be mentioning some of these names, but we are resolving it. Some schools have refused to accept supplies that have, and a typical example was what I showed you.
Yeah, he showed it to me. Yeah.
You see, and so we must all be circumspect that this is a national policy.
So
the fact that it's a particular party that is implementing it, we shouldn't wish it doom.
Yes,
I sense
some heads are trying to sabotage.
I sense from all these things that are happening, I sense strong, deliberate attempt to sabotage this program. It will not happen. People are wishing that this program never even came to light. NDC, contrarily, never had any formidable counter policy proposal on the implementation of free SHS. If they said they had any progressively free SHS, with failure to provide clear timelines, even in their manifesto, clearly goes to point to the fact that probably in the next 100 years they may have brought free SHS. They had no clue, they had no plan. Their position on free SHS and funding for SHS was made clear. This government, under the leadership of President Akufo-Addo, is very sensitive to the plight of the many Ghanaians. This is one of the flagship pro-poor policies in the south of the Sahara of Africa. Yeah. This to President Akufo-Addo is not an MVP achievement, must not be seen as President Akufo-Addo achievement, but it is a real need the Ghanaians have, which has been met. And so anyone that is wishing it doom is right to say so, but if anyone that is a well-meaning Ghanaian who has the plight of the ordinary citizen and the people who lack the wherewithal to afford the kind of fees that they may be able to afford, would not wish it doom, that if there is even minor challenges that we are encountering, let's see how we'll engage and resolve those challenges. And I'm here and I'm stating that I am very confident, optimistic, that with a formidable measures contained in the policy and how it has been started rolling out, how we are acknowledging the minor challenges that are being encountered in our readiness to resolve it. Free SHS will be sustained and it will be successful, and when we have succeeded at that, Ghanaians will always be grateful to President Akufo-Addo and everyone who supported in removing this plight of the ordinary Ghanaian like myself. Thank you.
Well, Srini, let me just draw the attention of Honorable Member and yourself. There's a leader of the MPP, and Dr. Kwame Amakotofo said on Ebusia FM, it's a Kumasi station. His quote said, I worked once when I visited a free SHS school and wept at the way the students were living. He said that the report by various media houses that these children were not being treated well in some of these schools. But when I went there, like school feeding program and all that, I once visited a school and witnessed it. There was this young lady I met. At once I noticed she was eating all her food, licked her plate. She didn't eat her egg on the food either. And she said that all these things show that there are teething challenges, but then these challenges could all be resolved. So perhaps we should be optimistic after all.
Well, it was just a foolhardy decision, you know, to start this policy the way that they have. In fact, I think the best thing would have been to do what ex-President Kufuor did when, after winning the election, he was hit by reality and had to apologize to Ghanaians that he wasn't going to be able to implement all that he promised. I think that would have been best. But to even recant on the promise of making it universal, to start it progressively, we are still having these challenges. So, Roland, I mean, like Amakotofo is saying, anyone who wants to deny and bury his head in the sand and act like an ostrich.
But it also shows that government has not denied anything.
Can continue to do so. But this morning, my heart goes out to parents who have had to travel long distances to find accommodation for children who are less than 15 years in some cases.
Is that happening?
It's happening. People are traveling to villages where they don't have a relative to rent, you know, rooms for their less than 15-year-old children to stay on their own in a community you have no idea what the risks are to your child. My heart goes out to such parents. My heart goes out to parents who are already treating diseases that their children have come home with as a result of congestions and as a result of the exposure of these children to the vagaries of the weather because of the inability of the schools they have been sent to accommodate them appropriately. My heart goes out to such parents. My heart goes out to the teachers who have had to vacate, in some cases, their bungalows so that they can accommodate some students, and in some cases have to patch with their friends or find money to rent accommodation for themselves. My heart goes out to such students. My heart goes out to the head teachers and the headmasters who are struggling to squeeze water out of stones just so that at least the children under their care can be properly housed and, you know, given some level of feeding. And, you know, their inability to even find furniture in some cases for these yes, that's why I'm saying that our free SHS has, I mean, our SHS
subsidies were incurred by which?
Stop heckling. You're gentle.
It is because
he has ended. You gave him 2 minutes. He has spoken for 5 minutes.
Okay, I didn't know you are now the host. You know, so my heart goes out to the head teachers who are doing their best under the circumstances to make something out of this shambolic implementation of the free SHS. My heart goes out to them, and I salute them. I also want to salute the students who are sleeping outside, who are sleeping in corridors, who have their chop boxes, you know,
students are sleeping on corridors.
I mean, don't you see the pictures and the videos that are making rounds on social media?
It's being debated,
you know,
and disputed.
And that is why you should settle it. I mean, I recall when we promised free SHS. I mean, we promised 200 senior high schools, and then it became like you said, debatable whether we had done 73 or 123.
So the media
What
was doing
happened?
fact-checking.
The media houses declared a mission to go out there and do fact-checking.
So you're
why
saying,
are we not doing the same? So I'm saying, don't let us just reduce this to the partisan talk.
Okay.
You have the capacity. Go out there. Go to the schools. My heart to those students who are sitting on the floor in their classrooms to write. My heart to those who are lying on their bellies to write. Senior high school,
No one is
you know,
lying on
children.
their belly
So
if they
I am
did in
saying
your
that
tenure, they are not doing so this time.
I'm saying that
No, they are
people
not doing
can
so this
deny
time.
as much
Free
as they
SHS
want.
is running.
But the reality on the
Any
ground
challenges that is being
is that
encountered will be
our
surmounted.
senior high
Let no one
school
exaggerate
is
the
under
challenges that
threat.
we are suffering.
Our senior high
It's a-
school
it's a
education
pure
is under
exaggeration.
threat.
Okay.
And
Pure
the earlier we
exaggeration.
realized as a people that we have
And
to
it's very
come,
ironical.
we have
Very,
to
very
come
ironical.
together and look at the
Let's
way
move on.
forward, the better for
It's
all
very
of us and
ironical.
for our
A program
education.
that has been widely acknowledged as the best educational
Please, I
policy
don't want him to
in the
have
south
another
of
bite.
Sahara.
So
Now that is a view that,
No, that's all right.
but that goes to show the position of the NDC when it comes to the plight of the ordinary Ghanaian.
You can do the propaganda with it. You can people. You see,
this,
all right.
you can
this has
propaganda with people's
I never
lives.
and I did not interject.
Are you
Even
sure
though
you didn't?
spoke beyond what you were given.
Oh, do you know the how?
So-
I'm sure that the viewers
But
will be
well,
laughing
I
at
will
you
leave that to
because you
Roland
actually. I was.
to
If you look
determine.
at Roland, if
This
you
is
watch
so-
him,
so-
I was ridiculing him with my eyes that he is giving you more time, and he acknowledged. So don't go there. I just don't think that it is
we have to
necessary.
end the
We are
discussion. I
mourning.
wanted us to discuss the government council's 11-power agreement because this one too was a bit topical from the better part of Friday up to now. We're told that according to the Business and Financial Times, government is likely to pay about $402 million in settlements alone, just by the cancellation of that. But we're also told that that is a cost-saving measure because ultimately about 7 billion or so that we're told is going to be what government will be saving at the end of the period. Yeah, 7.6 billion. I was right after all. And that would have been accrued in capacity charges over a 13-year period. So government says it has done the right thing, and led by the energy minister to Parliament, that was the best way to go about it. But we'll have to look at all that in another discussion segment. And I've had in the studio Al-Hassan Suhaini, who is a member of Parliament for Tamale North, and then also the Reverend John Intim Fodjwell, member of Parliament for Asin South. And we know that we're all mourning the demise of our own Kwejo.
But that's a discussion I would have relished to
Kwejo
have.
But you did not. Stop at you.
Kwejo Asaribafwe Champom Kaba, who is a host of Afternoon Talk show that is Ekosi Saying on Asempa. Well, condolences not only to him, to his family, but also to his entire bigger family, the whole multimedia family.